All right. Well, it has been back-to-back vicious finishes, and he's looking to follow that trend as we head into March 29th. It's none other than Lonell Woodhouse. Lonell, great to talk to you, man. How you been?
I've been good. How are you doing, Blake?
I'm doing wonderful. I want to ask you, you are kind of off to the races when it comes to this MMA career. Are you kind of trying to speed run this thing as you're kicking off your fighting career?
To be honest with you, just because of my age and where I'm at in my life, I believe so. I've been training for it, and I'm looking forward to continuously pushing myself past my limit and trying to get to that next level.
Yeah, for you, what kind of does the future look like? You're 29 right now. You kind of mentioned your age. What are the career aspirations?
The career aspirations, God willing, as long as I'm as healthy as possible, and obviously I still have that first round finish every time, or even a dominant performance. I plan on taking this pro, and hopefully I could get a manager some point in my pro career and move on to wherever that may take me.
Have you and your coaches talked at all about pro? Obviously, this will be your fourth fight. If it does go successfully, it'll be 3-1 as the amateur record. Some people make that jump then. Some people take plenty of time at the amateurs to kind of get their bearings.
I believe I want to more solidify myself in the future as far as at least a belt holder and get an opportunity to defend that, to just be in that environment and experience that. And my coaches and I have talked about the future and what it may look like depending on how things go and how far I do want to take it. But we're just optimistic and trying to put our best foot forward every day we can in training and outside in the kitchen and just in life and every aspect of my life right now.
It's interesting you mentioned the kitchen. I feel like a lot of fighters kind of forget about that until they've got a couple months leading into the fight. I'm sure you're already starting to
Sure.
prep that. How important to you is nutrition and making sure that you're taking care of your body outside of camps?
Man, I tell every fighter this: nutrition is not hard by any means, but nutrition will make or break you physically and mentally when it comes to getting into that ring, whether you believe so or not, just because of the fact that, like, if you can do it in the kitchen, it translates over to your weight cuts, it translates over to your speed, your endurance, your performance. Being right in the kitchen by far at any weight will make or break a fighter, essentially.
When did you kind of diagnose that for yourself? Because you've only been fighting for a handful of months, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's correct. So the funny thing is, before I got into combat sports, like seriously, I kind of let myself go after my football career, and I took a couple years off, probably gained up to like 280, 275. And then I realized I was like, yo, like I can't live this lifestyle, let alone do I want to? And that's when I decided, you know what, I'm going to get back in the gym. Started off with boxing, got into jujitsu, then MMA. And from there, I realized, hey, it's not even about starving yourself or not eating. It's just being diligent and being on top of what you put in your body and how much at a time you put in your body. So that was a big thing for me. And yeah, it's changed my life forever. I'm in the best shape of my life. Even compared to college football, I'm in better shape than that. So
No, you've looked fantastic in your past couple of fights in terms of physique and everything. So many people talk about this in the world of fighting is the eating disorders and the unhealthy relationship that so many fighters have because they're
sure.
either cutting or they're splurging because they're happy that they don't have to cut anymore. When did you or why did you gain back so much weight or not gain back, but why did you gain so much weight after your football career, do you think?
I just believe that it wasn't, any athlete that, aspired to be something for so long from high school all the way up until college. Like I was a football athlete. Now I'm done with football and, overseas at the time with the family I had started. I have a son here in Idaho and, that just wasn't looking too promising. So when I started to have to come to acceptance over that reality, it was kind of like a slap in my face to the point where I'm thinking, okay, what's next for me? And I didn't really have an answer because, yeah, I worked, I had jobs here and there, but it was nothing that I had planned since high school. So from that, I just kind of was eating whatever. I was putting whatever inside of my body and I let things get the best of me and I gained a lot of weight.
Was it always a plan to go to middleweight or did the poundage kind of shed over the years of training?
Um, I believe it was just because of my height mainly. I know I took a fight at light heavyweight, and when I did, that wasn't the worry because at that point I already knew like, hey, I could hang in there with any weight class. I feel like personally, but I know going on to that next level, whether it be pro, one championship or UFC, when you jump into that light heavyweight realm, you're fighting dudes 6'4", 6'5" that come down from like 280 and 250. I know I've done the same thing, but you know that height difference in the average fighter is it on a lot different experience than hey fighting at 185, and only the top fighters in that class may be around 6'2" to 6'4", area, instead of the average height being 6'4", 6'3". So it was just I guess a career choice for me.
Oh, I think it's smart. I think you've been very physically imposing in your fights up to this point. How long have you been training? I mentioned more so the months in terms of competing MMA, but when did you first get into a gym?
Sure. The first time I got into the gym, Blake, was probably the summer of 2024.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so really short. I was a wrestler in high school too. I know we spoke briefly about my football career, but I did wrestle, and I went to shout out to my high school, St. John Bosco High School, private school in California. They've been top 5 to 10 in the country in football for the last 15, 20 years. High school wrestling, they're one of the top high school wrestling programs in the country. They've produced the Valencia brothers, Aaron Pico in, I believe he's in the PFL. Oh, or no, he's in Bellator. I'm not sure where he's at now. But either way, I've been around, some of the greatest to ever do it in their, own aspect of their practice, whether it be football or wrestling. And I feel like that has rubbed off on me a lot. And when I got back into the gym and boxing last year, it was almost like riding a bike. Like I never felt like I missed a step at all, even though I was, 275, 270.
Tell me a little bit about being a running back at Idaho State. You talked about being at John Bosco, obviously a
Hmm.
very highly touted high school in itself. What was it like being a collegiate running back? We get a lot of skill position guys in the sport of MMA.
Yeah,
They're
sure.
typically the DBs, the middle linebackers, people like that. We don't get a lot of skill position players. So this is kind of fun.
The biggest transition, obviously, I went to St. John Bosco High School. That experience in itself was beautiful, and I'll never forget those days. We were doing things that a lot of college athletes at other schools rarely do until the college level. So imagine doing all that as you're 14 to 18, and having that exposure on a national level at such a young age was a blessing in itself. And just going from that to my first year at Nevada, which didn't pan out that well. I wasn't really all there mentally as far as schoolwork, and that kind of affected me being on the football team there. Transferring then to Idaho State kind of gave me an eye-opening experience. There's a lot of things, and I love ISU. I love the school. I love the team. I love the campus. Um, there was just a lot of things that I needed to get used to that weren't really my, style of life, I guess you can say, moving from, California to out here. And it was a lot to adjust to, but, since then, everything's been good.
Have you stayed in Idaho since you left California, or I guess Nevada technically?
So yes, I have. When I first graduated college back in 2018, 19, I had taken a year or two off, and that's when I kind of like gained all my weight. But I moved back to California, and once moving back to California, with everything going on as far as, I still had outside of fighting, I had like a rental property out here, and it was just so much to where I was like, you know what, it's best for my life to just come back to Idaho, end up coming back here, and when I was here, that's been the case ever since 2020, ever since pretty much after COVID, and yeah, it's been a great move for me, and I don't regret living anywhere else but here.
What made you choose Colossal Fight Company?
That was actually that's a story in itself, man. I feel like we're giving the content for your podcast that you need. Um, I'll be brief and quick on that because that's a long story. My original gym that I started at was under the name of Phantom Fight Company or Phantom Gym, something like that. And long story short, our coach there, he unfortunately had some legal situations arise that me personally I couldn't stand by, and I couldn't choose to be coached by a person like that. And when that had happened, I had taken and agreed to a fight, and I was in camp for about 2, 3 months for a fight out in New York under Flex Fight Series. And this was against a 3-1, or I think he was 2-1 at the time, opponent. I had never fought, and like I said, I dropped my coach. I ended up still taking that fight because I was already committed and I already started my weight cut, and that's just the type of person I am. End up going out there, no coach, no corner, first fight ever. I've probably been training for like 3 months. We go out there, and I end up losing that fight, but it went all 3 rounds against a guy that was on his third fight, and I broke my orbital on my in the third round, and I ended up losing by decision. Very controversial loss. I don't believe I lost that fight. A lot of people that watch it don't believe I lost that fight either, but that was my mistake. And from there, I ended up coming back with that orbital break injury. I had, a couple months to heal from that. And in that time frame, I went to a gym prior to a fight, a Colossal Fight Company, and it was called American Combat Society or Association, actually. And when I went to ACA, big kudos to them. I support everything they're doing over there, but it just wasn't the right fit for me at the time. And I took my chances and ended up actually hearing about Colossal Fight Company through a couple of my old teammates. And ever since I got there, I've been in love with it. Like my son's been there. I've enrolled friends that I know. I suggest it to everybody. Like I've had even my chiropractor's son sign up for classes there. And, what they do with groundwork at Colossal is just amazing. I've trained in California, I've trained in Utah, and there are very few places that on a consistent basis, drill into your head like the expectation of greatness, especially in these gyms that, a lot of them, they're just like, hey, come sign up, pay this monthly fee, and learn what you want to learn. But like our coaches at Colossal for sure push us to be the best version of ourselves in every aspect.
I wanted to talk to you about that debut because obviously a decision loss. What do you think you learned most from that?
I think I learned most. It's very important to have a corner. That's the biggest thing. That's the one thing that I take away from that fight that I remember was like just mind-boggling, and like it shook me. The whole fight was I did not know who to listen to. I didn't know who was saying what. When I heard things, I didn't know if it was for him, if it was for me. So it was literally me fighting in there with all these voices and just fighting against myself. So that was a really tough time.
Who did you walk out with? Were you alone? Did they have some sort of an auxiliary step in for you to help you
They had
out?
an auxiliary step in. I don't know the dude's name. Shout out to him. I don't know where or what he's from. It's just like one of those people they have in the promotion that are ready to step in at that type of situation.
What was it like fighting in New York? I've always wondered that with Flex Fight Series.
Um, I feel like it's a good promotion, especially for the East Coast. I'm not too knowledgeable in all the promotions that are going around, but I know for a fact that Flex Fight Series is a very good promotion on the East Coast, and they do their shows pretty proper over there. It was a great experience. That's what I told myself I wanted to do. As soon as I started fighting, I was like, hey, I've been on the big stage before in football, in wrestling. I want to make this first experience, whether I have my coach or not. I want to be in a place where I'm uncomfortable, in a situation where I'm uncomfortable, and I want to feel all those emotions. So moving forward, I won't have an excuse for myself, win or lose.
How far did you get in wrestling in high school? Kind of going back to that.
So I was always a big kid my whole life. Going to a football school, it was very important as far as weight and playing running back and linebacker in high school. When I first came into high school, I came in at like 160, and by the time freshman year started through summer camp, I was about 200 to 205. So when I wrestled, yeah, we put on we our weightlifting program over there was pretty serious, and we then I I'm sorry, I joined the wrestling team, and I wrestled at 205. I won small school state champ for 205 then, and that was between all the private schools in our area. It wasn't like it's kind of like state at the public school level, but it's more so just between all the private institutions.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, I did go for a run at state, but I went with the guy that year at Servite who had won. I believe his last name was McKinley, and we had a bout. And at one point in one of the rounds, I had torn my meniscus, and I just stopped after that. I had football season coming up after that, and I didn't want to continue trying to go for state in wrestling when I thought at the time football was right around the corner.
California's a big state, whether it's private institutions or not. That's pretty impressive to win
Yeah, sure.
handles in some sort of a state championship setting.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Back to back wins, one by TKO, one by submission. Do you have a preference as to which one you kind of like more, is more satisfying for you?
I'm not gonna lie. If it was up to me, I would love to finish them with a knockout. I don't know. I feel like my first fight, the dude didn't want to stand with me. Obviously, went to the ground, so I handled it there. The second guy seemed like he kind of wanted to bang with me for a little bit, but you know, I thought it was best to just khabib him, I guess.
Obviously, growing up running back your whole life, now a fighter, handful of fights in. Which one do you prefer? Do you like being a running back more, running into the end zone, or do you like looking to finish someone in a fist fight?
I think naturally I'm more of a fighter. 100%. Even my running back style, it was never just run away from people, speed. It was more like, hey, you come down at me, you better hold on or tackle me because if you don't, I'm gonna keep going. And I
Is
feel like that's the same level I take into the ring.
is that kind of the origin of the viciousness in which you fight? Because that's the word that comes to mind when I watch you fight.
I appreciate that, Blake. That means a lot. Thank you. I'm honestly not sure. I think it's just personally, mentally, my mindset. I have this mindset that, like, I'm not the best by far at my gym in any aspect. We have a lot of great fighters, and every day we do our due diligence to put each other through the hardest practice we can have. And I think with that mindset of, hey, train now as hard as possible, even though you're going to throw up, even though you're tired, even though you had, a bad day, whatever the case may be, to where when it's that day, it's not even a competition at that point because you know what you've put in all those weeks leading up to camp. You know what you've done, and it's time to fucking party. Excuse my language, but it's time to party. You know what I mean? So when that fight day comes, I'm like, I took a nap before my last fight, like I think 15, 20 minutes before it. So I was already in the zone. I kind of had to chill out, take a nap, but fight day is for sure party day any time of the year, any day of the year. It's party day on fight day. So
How do you
that's my kind of like mentality on that.
how do you fall asleep in the back? I've always wondered how that works. I've heard fighters do that before. I don't even know how that's possible.
Try and find the comfiest spot on a cold floor and fall asleep, man.
Are you
Like,
tired though? Like can you actually fall asleep? Is your mind not
yeah,
racing?
no, it's not. No, no. I mean, like I said, at Colossal when we spar, and I'm sure other people when they come out, because we have people from Empower Fitness, from other gyms in Utah that come out, and when they do, I'm sure they know that we train differently. The physicality, the tempo, the consistency, the expectation, it's just real different.
You have a favorite football player growing up?
Yeah, I did. Michael Vick, honestly.
Quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, right? Quarterback. Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. What about Michael Vick did you really enjoy watching?
I liked how explosive he was. I liked how at the position he played at, there was no one else like him. Like, especially at that time, like hearing of a mobile quarterback, let alone somebody that was, fast, powerful, and had accuracy. Like, it was just a show every time you watched him. I loved it.
I think one thing that's very interesting about you is football is a very adrenaline driven game.
Sure.
MMA is probably atop the pack in that category. What is the differences in adrenaline? You kind of mentioned being calm and cool and collected before a fight. Were you the same way in football?
Um, I believe so. I think initially when I was younger, I kind of got a little nervous before games, and that was just like Pop Warner and the very few games I think I've played maybe 3 games freshman year level before they suited me up for varsity or JV at that time. I can't remember exactly, but I just feel like going to that school and having that exposure at a high level at an early age really set myself apart from that type of anxiety, I assume, because there's a lot of endeavors in my life. I've been in extras for All American, the Netflix series. Like I've been in different situations in my life that have really helped me navigate through uncomfortable situations, whether it be on the football field or in the cage. So
Coming into March 29th from Idaho Falls, what's the number one thing you're looking forward to with a guy like Riker Wood opposite you in the cage?
I'm looking for the experience. I'm looking forward to the time that we're gonna be able to share in there, and you know how we could show the world or whoever's watching actually just what we're capable of doing.
Have you been able to study up on Riker at all?
Out of his last two fights that I've seen, one versus Walker Petlow, that's my boy. I've trained with him out in Memento Mori, and I don't remember the other opponent's name, but I have been able to watch both of those fights. Yes.
What do you make of him as a fighter?
I respect his game. I respect what he has to offer as a fighter. I think, he has his height going for him, and I think, he prepares as much as I do because come the 29th, I'm going to be ready.
None other than Lonell Woodhouse looking to move to 3-1 out of Colossal Fight Company. Lonell, thank you so much for the time, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Blake.